Good evening and welcome back to Donn&Ultra. My name is Monica and I'm the creator of this space completely dedicated on female ultra runners. So normally I would be speaking in Italian, and this evening we're going to make some changes, and we are starting a new, let's say, a new series of interviews with female ultra runner who are not Italian. And so today I have the privilege of interviewing Sabrina Pace-Humphreys, and she's a British ultra runner. She's an author. She's a social justice activist, a motivational speaker, a coach, a community leader. She wears I don't know how many hats. She has written so far 2 books. Black Sheep is the first one, which is a memoir, and the second one is a very interesting book for an ultra runner. It's a book on how to run 5K, and I think we're going to talk about this because it's very important, especially for what we're doing here with Donn&Ultra, trying to inspire a lot of women to run and to run long distance. And 5K is a good place to start. I think it's a perfect place to start, and you don't have to run ultra races, but if you want to do that, that's the best place to start. And she's also the co-founder, and we're going to talk about this, the co-founder of Black Trail Runners, which is a UK community running group that focuses on inclusion, participation, and representation of Black people in trail running. She is a podcast co-host. I mean, so much. I think, we probably need 3-4 interviews with her to cover everything that she does. So I think I will let Sabrina in. And there she is. Hi, Sabrina. Ciao.
Ciao.
So I know
Wow.
I talk too much. You do so much. I mean, I don't know where you find all the energy to do all these things. I get tired just reading the list of the things you do.
That was such a lovely introduction. Thank you so much. And yeah, when you list the different things that I do, it makes me tired listening to it. So no wonder I have to go to bed at 9 o'clock every night.
Well, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. So, as I said in my introduction, Sabrina, you have the perfect last name for a runner, right? Pace.
I do. I
It's just
do.
you do. Now, as I said in my introduction, you are actually our first non-Italian female ultra runner on the podcast.
Thank
And I don't
you.
think our audience know much about you. So I know that I've said quite a lot about you, but maybe if you can introduce yourselves and tell us a bit more about you, and where you come from, and let's take it from there, and then we'll talk about all the other stuff.
No problem at all. Well, I'm really, really glad to be to be here, listening to you, and also to be introducing myself to your audience. I am I was not born into a running background at all. I come from a family that struggled with money, very working class.
Mhm.
And our family, were, dependent upon the state for handouts growing up, and the barriers to sport were there for me. So, my mother couldn't afford kind of sports shoes, couldn't afford to send me to sports camps or sports clubs. And it's the reason I say that is because it's a really important part of my story.
Mhm.
I grew up in the UK in a very small market town in the countryside, and I am a woman of Black heritage. I'm a Black biracial woman.
Mhm.
And in my first book, Black Sheep, I talk about what it was to grow up in a place where no one looked like you. And I experienced quite horrific racial abuse growing up, which made me not want to go out and do sport more, right? Being outdoors was a really unsafe place for me to be growing up as a
Wow.
child, as a teenager. So, it's really important to share that aspect of my story with your listeners because I think when we speak about my ultra running journey, I think the resilience that I'm able to use has very much been developed from my lived experience. And it
Sure.
doesn't have to be that way for all ultra runners, but my story is one of a lot of struggle, a lot of feeling as if I wasn't good enough as a girl, a
Mm.
teenager, a woman, having to constantly prove having to constantly prove why I should be allowed into rooms, why I should be given opportunities. Um, and when it came to sport, that just wasn't a place that I felt comfortable. I had my first child I just turned 18.
Mhm.
So I was a teenage mother. And again, society's perceptions of what I would do with my life were that you will make nothing of yourself.
Right.
You're a young mother. Young mothers don't do well.
Yeah,
But
you already failed, right? At that point.
you've already
Just you failed.
failed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've already failed, and the societal expectation of kind of, black mixed race from a poor family, working class, teenage mother, kind of almost all of the odds from a societal perspective were stacked against me.
Mhm.
But I think that my lived experience taught me that I do not have to conform to what people say about me or what people think about me. So having my first baby when I just turned 18 lit a real fire inside me to want to create a life for her and
Mhm.
myself that was what they said we couldn't. So, I started to develop my type A personality from them in the sense of goal setting, in the sense of kind of small steps that I could take that would lead to bigger change, whether that was next week, next month, next year.
Mhm.
And I came out of school with barely any qualifications and I found a stepping stone in a career in marketing and public relations. And I worked my way through from the bottom right up to the top over, over kind of 20 odd years.
Mhm.
And within that time, I had another child. So I had my second child 18 months after I'd had my first. Again, sport wasn't a thing. I was not a runner. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand why people ran. I really just did not see what it was about it that people were obsessed with, or I just didn't understand it. Um, and then I went on to found my own public relations business and I met my now husband and we had two more children. So I have four children
On top
and
of
they're
everything
ages.
else.
On top of everything else, I have four children. My oldest will be 30 next month in April 2026, and my youngest will be 17 in
Okay.
June. So I have a 30-year-old, a 28-year-old. I had a big gap, and then I have a 19-year-old and an almost 17-year-old. And I think that as a woman who was running a business, who was very high, lots of women listening now, very quite stressed out, having to juggle so many different plates of, being a mother to children that were different ages, running a business. I was the main breadwinner in my family. My release, and I talk about this within my first book,
Mhm.
how I started to feel the only way I could release that stress was to drink alcohol.
Mm.
And over years, that dependence upon me telling myself that the only way that I could address or could manage the stress in my life was by having a couple of glasses of wine that led to a bottle of wine that would lead to two bottles of wine. Again, many women listening will understand that.
Sure.
Um, and in 2016, I sought treatment for alcoholism. And yeah, that was a really, really big thing for me. But
Of course.
if we rewind back to 2009, that was when I had my last child, so my
Mhm.
youngest. And that I'd always felt these feelings of high anxiety growing up, and dealing with the life that I was dealing with and the decisions that I was having to make, and those periods of those high feelings of anxiety would often transpire into quite low mood and episodes of depression,
Mhm.
which I sought help for. And in 2009, when I had my youngest child, for the first 12 weeks, I just spiraled into an episode of postnatal depression that was so consuming, that was so detrimental to my mental and physical well-being. It had me in its grip so hard that I didn't know what was wrong with me. I couldn't name it. I felt hopeless. I felt lost. I had gained about 5.5 stone when I had my fourth child. And it was only at my a 12-week kind of postnatal baby check, mother and baby check that we have here in the UK, where alongside checking me over physically and checking the baby over physically, the doctor was also asking me questions about my thought process, my mental well-being, and it was very, very obvious to her from what I was saying that I wasn't well at all. At that time, I was having suicidal ideation. I just didn't I didn't feel that I was any good at anything, and I felt that I didn't know what to do with my life, and I didn't know what service I was, and I didn't feel I was a good mother, wife,
Mm.
businesswoman. I was good at anything. Um, and as one of the mechanisms to deal with my postnatal depression, the doctor said, medication, talk therapy, and I want you to get outside. Why not try something like jogging?
I love this story because you've told this story in other podcasts, and your reaction to her a suggestion was like, no, I don't think so,
No.
right?
No, 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 no. Sabrina doesn't do jogging. Sabrina doesn't run. Like, this is not something that is in my toolbox. I've never done it. I would be in a car driving along and I would see runners running along the road and I would laugh because they looked like they were in such pain and they were like packs of dogs chasing each other and they looked sweaty and hot and they were normally kind of quite lithe, quite thin
Mhm.
men with short
Mhm.
shorts and vests, and I would like, that didn't look like me. And
Mhm.
I didn't see myself represented at all. So I was like, absolutely not, doctor. No, no, that's not going to work for me at all. And I left there with my prescription and I thought, no. But the thing is, I was so ill that a couple of days went on and kind of, although I did not want to do it, the thought of, I was kind of thinking, well, if a doctor tells you, a medically trained doctor tells you,
Then I should do it.
then I should do it. I should
Yeah.
try it.
Mhm.
And yeah, I had no running gear. Again, as many women when they can remember starting running, listening now, I had no running gear. I had, I looked in a cupboard that we have at home and I was looking for some kind of pair of trainers and I got out a really old pair of Dunlops that had seen much better times. And I had no sports bra, so I wore a very sturdy nursing bra and some old jogging trousers and a very baggy t-shirt. And I ventured somewhere where I thought no one would see me. And that was the canal towpath. It was a
Mhm.
trail, and I didn't even know it
You
was
didn't know.
called a trail. I had no idea. I wanted to be somewhere where I wouldn't have to see anyone that I knew, because I was really ashamed of Like, I put on a lot of weight with the baby, and I
Mhm.
didn't know how to run. I didn't know how to do it. And I didn't want people to laugh at me. I didn't want to feel ashamed. I just wanted to feel better in my head. Um, but yeah, I look back now and I think the first run I ever did was,
Was on
yeah, I
the
mean,
trail.
was the trail. I mean, I say run. It was more of a shuffle because
Mhm.
it was a walk shuffle. But that's where it started in 2009.
Yeah, I mean, listening to you and also reading your book, you could have been one of those like cases that like a number or one of those standard cases of a young mother uh, with a life ruined, and you can be a statistics right now, right? That's what the word I was trying to find. It could
Mm,
just be one of statistics. Alcohol was in the mix and depression. Things could have gone all wrong, right? But I think you have this innate resilience and determination to get to the point where you change the direction of your life, right? There is
mm,
always a point, even when you were a little kid with all the problems that you had of racism in your village, you never, yeah, you kind of, s- you kind of gave in, and then there was something that made you change direction.
mm,
Uh, and I remember the story with your hair. I love that chapter. I thought that chapter was very important. And you keep doing that. I think it's something within you that
mm,
pushes you to get out of the most dramatic situation that you've been in. So,
mm.
and I think that's basically um what also make you like a great ultra runner, like going
Yeah,
the distance, right? Never giving up and always trying to find a solution when something happens in your like ultra very long
yeah.
distance race, right?
I think you're so right, and it's the big question that I'm asked. It's the question I'm asked when it comes to me now taking part in races that can be, for example, 268 miles in length, and
Mhm,
it's how do you keep going? Is any ultra runner listening to this, or any woman listening to this, or any person listening to this podcast that has exceeded their own expectations of what they can do, but also others' expectations. I think that where that really developed for me is in as a young girl having to experience situations that could have absolutely crippled me, could have mentally traumatized me to the point of just not wanting to do anything that would put
mhm,
myself out there. I learned that the only way to survive was to continue to step forward in a way that I kept myself safe.
mhm,
I didn't rely upon others to keep me safe. And that people say to me now, "Oh, would you change it?" I mean, on look, people tried to burn my hair, like, when I was younger.
mhm,
People would hurt me physically because of the color of my skin, because of my hair, because I looked different when I was younger. I had to survive. It was survival, and it's that survival instinct that means that throughout my life, when I have been faced with decisions that many people would say, enough is enough, or say I'm not necessarily equipped to in an ultra marathon to go on, that I'm able to draw from a really, really deep well, a dark
mhm,
cave, as Courtney
mhm,
Dauwalter would say. I'm able to be
mhm.
in that cave with my chisel and
Yeah.
tip through because I had to do that from such a young age. It comes really.
natural.
naturally to
Almost.
me.
Yeah.
Almost
Yeah.
really naturally to me to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the struggle, but also now I find it's what I can achieve via being in that cave a lot longer than anyone else is, and that transcends to my ultra running and to my activism work and to using the platforms that I have in order to advocate so strongly for women, for historically marginalized communities, whether they are communities of ethnic diversity, whether it's LGBTQIA plus, whether it's less able-bodied, but those people and women, as women, we are one of those that traditionally, because of the patriarchy, we have been
Hmm.
told you don't belong here.
Yeah.
So that is, I think that is that deep well of resilience that I'm able to now use in my ultra running.
Yeah. And you've gone from not believing that you were good enough to be, and you didn't belong to any place,
Mhm.
to being somebody that people look up to and find inspiring. So it's so you've transformed your life, but you're also now transforming other people's life. Also, not only with your story, but also with your activism, the creation of Black Trail running, Black Trail runners, and with the book, and also being a coach. I guess that in your coaching, all this, all your experience, your life experience, your running experience, informs the way you coach women,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
And
it really does. I mean, I'm wearing the T-shirt I'm wearing today is my I've been out coaching women
uh-huh.
today. So I'm coaching, on a Friday morning, every morning, and it's a non-negotiable for me no matter how busy I am. I've been leading a women's run group locally for 10 years,
Mhm.
and it's so important to me. Coaching is so important to me because when I was new in running and when I started going for longer distances, I there weren't many female coaches. And, we have to remember that, you know, the sports industry and the running industry and ultra running is very male dominated. It's
Yeah.
very middle class, male dominated. And so when I was searching for women and coaches that not only were great coaches in running, but actually understood the female body,
Hmm.
that's a really unique skill to have. And it's something that I pride myself on because we are women, as the great Dr. Stacey Sims says, women are not small men.
Woman. Yeah.
So much of the sports science, from training programs to shoes to gear to nutrition that we are marketed, aren't developed for us. So
Hmm.
therefore, it was really important for me in 2016 I knew that if there was one thing I ever did with my life, that I wanted to be a coach to women, to use all the experience that I had had to say to women, I understand where you are. I
Hmm.
have the skills in order to help you to run, whether it's 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon, ultra marathon. And let me take your hand and let me be your biggest cheerleader. And I do that. And I've done that for 10 years personally with running with women around the world, actually, with my travel. I've done it online. So I do a lot of online coaching for women around the
Hmm.
world. And I think that it's so important that if you are a woman and you are seeking to challenge yourself, and again, many of the women or many of the people listening to this podcast will be ultra runners. But I think that there is so much misinformation out there when it comes to how we get stronger, how we become consistent, how we can run further, how we can look after our bodies as we age as women, the
Hmm.
risks of osteoporosis and how we mitigate that through nutrition, through strength training, and how we can, women, the science shows that we can run for very long distance. And at certain distances, we are comparable and start to overtake men.
Yeah.
So for me, I was born to do it because I just love seeing people succeed. And there is nothing better than seeing someone that you have coached and you have coached through the lower days when they're tired and they feel heavy and they don't feel as though they can do the session. There's something about being with them on that journey and seeing them transcend that they thought about themselves. It's
Yeah.
a beautiful thing to be part of that transportation, and that's why I love coaching, and ultimately that's why I wrote my latest book.
Okay. I was waiting to talk about the book, but I think this is the right moment. And my question is the same question that I had during, my little introduction to you, because obviously you've been running like very long distances up to this point, and probably I would have expected a book about how to run an ultra marathon, right? But I think thinking about your life experience and everything that you've been saying in the in the podcast right now, I think probably this is the best fit for you, because what all that you're doing is trying to include women in the conversation, and not necessarily women have the time and the energy and the social structure to be able to run long distances, and they should not be discouraged. They should be, there are so many other things that they can do, and a 5K is just about right.
Mm. And the thing is,
So, yeah,
yeah, I mean, and you're so right, because exactly, society expected as my second book to be how to run an ultramarathon.
yeah,
But I always go against societal expectations. And the hardest, I will tell you right now, and I urge any person listening to this podcast, the hardest mile I ever ran, the hardest half a mile that I ever ran relative to the
mm,
distance. So now was the first time I ran. It was that decision. I'm not a runner. I don't run. I'm going to get laughed at. The hardest decision I ever took in terms of moving my body forward was that first time.
mhm,
And now that was harder than what it was to finish my 268-mile race 2 years ago. That
mhm,
was harder than what it took to finish the last mile of the 200-mile race that I did 18 months ago. That was harder than even deciding last year at UTMB at 80 miles at Champay-Lac and getting timed out there.
mhm,
And that's why if we don't start where we are, which is the title of the book, if we don't take that decision against everything society, our family, our friends are telling us, that if we do not start, we can never run an ultra marathon. So
mm,
that's why it was, in my mind, a really clear decision, because I want more women to experience even a percent of what I've experienced via the activity of running. It's
yeah,
transformed my life, and it's transformed so many lives of people that are around me, people that are friends online, people that are friends and family in person. But without making the decision to start, they wouldn't be here. None of us would be here. I wouldn't be here talking to you. You wouldn't have a podcast called Donn&Ultra
yeah,
if we hadn't started. And that's why for me it was a very clear decision as that, the third book, wink,
Yeah, then will
maybe
be
more,
something.
that it may be more ultra running, more long distance focused, but absolutely the natural second book for me was women who needed a cheerleader and needed the
Mhm,
book that wasn't out there, that covered everything from that mindset shift to in chapter 14, the 10-week plan. This is how we're
mhm.
going to do it. Because I want more women within this sport.
Listen, Sabrina, we need to find a way for your books to be translated in Italian because I don't think they
Hell
have
yeah.
been, right? Yeah,
No, they
let's
haven't
have that
been.
conversation.
Please, please. And if anyone's listening to this that works for a publisher that can publish in
Exactly.
Italian, please get in touch because we need this book to be there.
Yes, yes, totally. So as I said, we probably need like 3, 4 podcasts with you to be able to cover everything. But I just wanted to go back and try to maybe talk about uh, what happened after your first run, right? And how did you get to? So that was 2009, and then in 2017 you ran your first ultra. I can see here from the list that I have, which probably I don't know if this is complete because it's the DUV website.
Yeah,
You did the race to Stones 100K
I did.
in two stages, right?
Yep,
And then that year you also did a proper full, like not even a
yep,
50K, not even a 50 miles, 100K,
yep,
Thames Path
yep.
challenge. So what happened in this, like, uh,
Yeah, from two thou
yeah.
yeah, so I started in 2009, and when I got back from that first run, I realized that for 45 minutes of shuffling my body, I hadn't had a thought about taking my own life, and I thought to myself then, "Oh my gosh, I wanna get into that headspace again," and the only thing that could do it was running. So over the
Mhm,
course between 2009 and yeah, doing my first ultra marathon, I literally just bit by bit just went a bit longer and longer. So, first and foremost, I trained for a 5K. And
mhm,
again, there were no influencers out there at the time. There was no social media. The only magazine was Runner's World, and that featured a load of men that I couldn't relate to. So I kind of just did it my way, bit by bit, small step by small step. So I went from 5K to 10K and then to half marathon over the course. It wasn't immediate. It was kind of over the course of years.
mhm,
And then in 2011, I did my first marathon. And in 2012, the year of the London Olympics, I got into
mhm.
London Marathon. I did my first
You
London
did that?
Marathon. I
Fantastic.
did.
What an experience.
Oh, it was the most amazing experience.
Wow. Yeah.
My oldest daughter is actually doing it this year for the first time, and I'm coaching her through it. Um, and and then when I went into recovery for alcoholism, my sponsor said to me, Sabrina, you've got to get busy living without alcohol.
Mhm,
And it was one night I was watching a documentary on the Discovery Channel we have here. It's a kind of satellite
mhm,
channel. And there was a documentary about a ultra marathon called the Marathon des Sables, the
mhm,
Marathon of the Sands, a
mm.
250-kilometer ultra marathon in the Sahara Desert. And I remember sitting one Saturday night when I'd normally be 2 bottles of wine down, and I was watching this, and there was this guy on there who was a British Olympian, and he was s- being sick of green bile, and he was hooked up to IV drips. And I was like, oh, what is he doing? And he was taking part in the toughest
Mhm,
foot race on earth, is the strapline. And I was like, oh my goodness. But then there was something in my head that was like, oh, I'm going to be 40 in 2 years. What if I trained for something like that? And then 6 months later, I had signed up. So the Race to the Stones and the Thames Path Ultra
they were
were
like,
in the run up. They were
right, just
training races.
You did that. The Marathon des Sables was on 2018.
Yes.
And what was that experience for
Oh
you?
my gosh. I say it. I've been asked this question. I was asked it the other day. The Marathon des Sables still remains to me. It was my first ever multi-stage European ultra.
Mhm.
And it was the best experience in ultra running that I have had to date, because I had never seen myself in places like that. I didn't travel abroad until I was 17. I would only see the Sahara Desert or pictures of these big sand dunes in golden deserts on picture books and in magazines. I'd never experienced anything like that. And to be there on that start line with these international athletes from around the world, and to be carrying everything on my back. The Marathon des Sables is a self-sufficient race. You carry
Mhm.
everything from your sleeping bags to your food on your back. I remember looking around and thinking, oh my God, as many of us do when we stand on the start lines, I actually made it here. Because so many people, when we're training for these races,
They
we
don't.
get injured, we don't get
Yeah,
there. So just to get to the start line was like, oh my God, I made it here. And then throughout 5 days, as every stage went on and I wasn't getting injured and I felt stronger and I was working my way up the rankings. And oh my God, to when I finished on that 5th day, I remember in the final 1K, I was in floods of tears and I was delirious and I was sleep deprived, and I was kind of visualizing like my kids running by the side of me and my dog, and oh, that feeling of crossing the line into the arms of Patrick Bauer, who was like the granddad of the Marathon des Sables. He started it, and I'd just seen photos of him, and there's just a photo that went viral around the world of like me being hugged by him and crying. And it just, my face says it all about what that moment meant to me. And it stays with me still to this day as the most emotional, the most iconic, the most special moment that to date I've had in ultra running. And I crossed the line as 11th British female. So I was really happy with
fantastic.
that.
Yeah, and I mean, how did you how in England, in Britain, was something like that, right? How do
Oh, it
you
was so hard.
uh,
It was, I tried to find, terrain that was as close as possible, because what people think about running in the Sahara Desert is that it's all sand dunes. It's not. It's a lot of dry riverbeds, mountainous terrain, flat lands, dusty. There are
mhm,
sand dunes, but they tend to come towards the latter part of the race,
right.
and yeah, it's not the whole, if you're doing a marathon one day, it's not the whole 26 miles that are the dunes. So we do have sand dunes in Wales. There's a place in Wales which is kind of about an
Mhm,
hour and a half from me where you could go. But when it came to the heat training, I did a lot of nearer to the start of the race. I did a lot of sauna based
so,
training,
mhm,
and I did a lot of my local university, which honored me almost 2 years ago with an honorary doctorate. They
right.
allowed me to use their heat chamber. So, in the 2 weeks in the run up to going to the Sahara, I was in the heat chamber, acclimating to the temperature
Mhm.
that I would be and the humidity that I would be running in the Sahara. So, actually, when I got out there, the heat didn't really bother me at all.
Well, you would I don't know. I'm Italian, I'm from the south of Italy, and I can't cope with the heat, so I'm really impressed, I have to say. Um, yeah, and actually, one thing that every time I was listening to one of your podcasts, I thought, when I meet Sabrina, I need to tell her this story, because you mentioned starting in 2009 when, there were no influencers, and the information out there was not as it is now. And I was in London and I started in 2005. And my first marathon was the London Marathon in 2006. Yeah. And I knew no one running a marathon. I did not know what to do, to wear. So I went on Runners World UK online. There were all the forums, and I joined the and they were so supportive. And I remember that you mentioned the Runners World UK as the only course. So that's a very similar experience, I think,
Oh,
that we had at the
yeah.
beginning.
Yeah. I mean, back in the day, those forums were the only information portals that we
Yeah,
had, right? And I
yeah,
think I did as well. I had like dial-up internet back in the day.
exactly.
And you would go on the forums and you would ask questions, much like a Facebook group now, wasn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because there was nothing else. There was nothing else. And, right now, these days, I'm a monthly columnist for Women's Running magazine here in the
Hmm.
UK. And I it's like a dream come true almost because, I was looking for the person that I am now with the books and
Exactly.
the platform but it wasn't there back in the day. So we really had to be very intentional with kind of looking for the information, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, those women, I'm still friends with them. So they were very important in my very poor running career, but very important. so so you started on the towpath, not knowing that that was a trail. But when did you actually realize that you liked to run on trails?
Oh my goodness. I think it was when I signed up for the Marathon des Sables and I knew that none of the race was on roads in the Sahara
Hmm.
and I had to get onto trails. And it was honestly when I was started training for the Marathon des Sables that I first intentionally ventured onto a trail. And a love affair started from that day. I love trail running. I am trail running's biggest fan. Cut me in half, and you will have navigation around some of my most beautiful trails around the world that I've done. Some of those being the Italian mountains, let me say.
There you go.
Um, oh my God, what a beautiful! Yeah, I've had some of the most beautiful, iconic runs in the Italian mountains. Um, and for so many years, I cannot overestimate. I was so fearful of being in natural spaces, of being in the countryside, of being somewhere that people couldn't hear me scream or cry for
Mm,
help. And when I intentionally went to the trails to start training I was like, every single time I went there, and I felt more confident as a woman with the kit that I had, with how to find the trails, how to find my way home, what to eat, what the different fences and styles and things that I had to go over, the animal noises. Every time I ventured out, I fell more in love with being in nature, being off road, being alone sometimes, most of the time
mhm,
it was a love affair that I just felt such a connection with trail running, with my body not being able to keep up the paces that I had been doing on the road, and to start to really listen to, like, if I'm going up a hill, there is no point in me running this because I can walk power hike faster than I can run up this hill. And then suddenly that feeling that, oh, my thick thighs, my big bum are made to climb hills, And it was
yes.
this kind of realization that my body and my mind suits trail running so much more than it suits road running. That the affair, the obsession, the wanting more and more and more trail running started from the moment that I stood on the trails intentionally to train for the Marathon des Sables.
Yeah. So you've done pretty cool races, and I know that I'm going to ask you probably the same questions that everybody has asked you in
Doesn't matter.
the last year, probably. But I well, first of all, I've seen that you've done the summer spine race, and one of my question was, any plans in the future to do the winter one?
Well, I can announce here
Ooh.
that I am on the start line for the Winter
Mhm.
Spine 2027.
Fantastic! Oh
Yeah,
my god, that's a
yeah, yeah.
tough one.
It's a very tough one, and there's a reason that I have left it until 2027 in order to
Yeah.
do the same route, but in the winter.
Mhm.
And I wanted to ensure that as a woman that I had the necessary winter running skills that I felt I needed. And
Mhm.
I feel now that I'm so much more confident in terms of my ability, to problem solve, to put myself into environmental conditions, which is snow, ice, coldness, bogs, and also the communities that I'm part of. There are so many more of us now that want to do events like this, that actually even training for it becomes a community type event.
So you're not
So
doing it on your own.
that's
Mm.
it. So
Yeah.
I know the race organizers of the Spine very well, and I'm very privileged that I could share my fears. And my biggest
Mhm.
fear around the Spine race, it's not the cold, it's not the wet, it's falling in a bog. Because sometimes if you fall in these bogs in the winter, some people can be up to their neck in these bogs.
Mhm.
And that's a
Mhm.
scary thing for me. I'm only five
Oh,
foot four. Um, but I took the decision and I signed up, and I am on the entry list for
fantastic
2027
news!
event.
Fantastic news! We will follow your journey for sure.
Thank
I'm super fascinated by that race. I followed it every year, and I think it's just, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
it's
real,
a tough
really
one.
tough one. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I'm sure you're going to be successful. But my like very probably super common question would be around the UTMB that you did last year, and probably was not the race that you expected. You went there, you were so ready, everything went well in your training plan. You showed up at the start line. I followed you and the group of women that you went
yeah,
with, and I was rooting for all of you. And then something happened, and you had to stop the race. And can you tell us what happened? But also, what did that DNF? I know that you don't like the word DNF, but what did that DNF do to you and to your um yeah, self confidence in, like running? Did something change?
yeah. Oh my goodness. No, I mean, I'll never ever shy away from talking about Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc. Yeah, I mean, last year for me in terms of ultra marathons and racing was a super busy year, super busy.
Mhm,
I did countless marathons. I went to South Africa. I ran Comrades Marathon. It was a bucket
mhm,
list race for years. I went and did that with my friends. I did a 4-day recce of the whole TMB route in July because I wanted to understand every aspect of the course. It was a super I did Ultra Trail Snowdonia 50K in May, and
mhm.
we're busy women, so as well as our training life and being a mother and being a grandmother, I'm a grandmother of 3. Um, so
That's
I
crazy.
I know, it's
That's
crazy. It really is. But I felt physically ready going into UTMB. So it was the Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc. It was the 171 kilometers around the Mont Blanc Massif. So what they call the Queen race of the UTMB World
Mhm,
Final Series. Um, so although I felt physically ready going into UTMB, I and standing on the start line, I felt ready. It had been such a busy, busy year. And even that week, you know, We had 7 women of Black heritage that were taking part in UTMB finals week races, that had
Mhm.
never been seen before. We were all there through the work of Black Trail Runners, which is the community campaigning charity that I founded. And it was a massive thing. It was a huge week. There was a lot going on. And I started the race on the Friday evening, and we knew that bad weather was coming in. And as we know, when we're in an ultra marathon, it's the small decisions that you take that can be
Mhm.
your undoing. It's not the big things. It's the small decisions that you either choose to act on or you don't act on that can be the downfall. And what had happened in that first night is that, first and foremost, so I'll be really honest about that. In terms of the fuel that I was using, I had started using a fuel that I really trusted, but the packet that I needed to get it out of, I hadn't used before. And what
Mhm.
happened is that when I started using it in the races the first time, and what was happening is when I got into Les Houches, I couldn't get enough of my fuel out of this packet.
Oh,
So that
okay.
impacted how much
Of
fuel I was
course.
taking on board an
Mm.
hour. But it didn't hit me when I got into Les Houches. It didn't hit me when I got to my second aid station at Saint-Gervais. I was ahead of time at Saint-Gervais, but the weather had started to come in. So when I got to Les Contamines Montjoie, again, I was about half an hour ahead of my expected time that my crew were expecting me, but the rain had started. We knew that we were going to be going in up into the mountains proper, out of Les Contamines Montjoie, up towards La Balme and Col de Bonhomme. And what happened is, when, as many watching UTMB will have seen, as the runners started to climb up there, the snow came in, the temperature reduced. The I felt good. I felt powerful. I felt strong. I was taking
Mhm.
on as much energy as I needed. But what I hadn't calculated at that point, especially when I hit the top, was when it is colder weather, when it is snow and rain, and your body temperature is fighting to keep a temperature, you're using much more energy than you think
Mhm.
you.
Mhm.
And I hadn't calculated for how much more energy I needed to take on board on
Right.
that climb, but also on the way back down off that mountain. Because as we were coming off that mountain, it was a mud fest. It was
Mm.
all the runners could do to stay upright. There were people falling over left, right, and center. And we're on a mountain, right? You kind of
Mhm.
can't be falling. So everything got slower. It took longer to get off the mountain for all of us. But
Mhm.
for me, what transpired is that when I got to Le Chapiot, I was severely energy depleted.
Right.
So at 50K, going now into the border between France and Italy, into Grand Col,
Ferrer?
no,
Blanco
it wasn't
Ferrer?
no,
No?
it's not even that. It's before Refuge Elisabetta. So near to Col de Chavannes. Um, it's the France-Italy border, basically.
Okay.
That climb up there, just I had no
No
energy.
energy.
It was
Yeah.
just as if everything I was taking on board was not registering, because I was in such a calorie deficit,
Mhm.
because I hadn't back there on that mountain taken on
Taking
enough.
enough, yeah.
Um,
So
I
it
was
was a fueling issue for
It was
you?
a fueling issue for me. It was
Mm.
a massive fueling issue for me. What I've been dealing with over the past couple of years of being in perimenopause is that the
Mhm.
foods that I once relied upon don't
It's
work
not working
anymore.
anymore. I know.
And that's a massive thing that we as women find when we're in perimenopause and menopause, is what we once relied upon doesn't necessarily work to fuel us anymore.
Mhm.
So honestly, I can tell you now, from 50, I hit Courmayeur, which is, people say it's halfway, it really isn't. But it's like 83K. I
Mhm.
started to be behind time. I wasn't yet chasing cutoffs, but I just, nothing I was consuming was giving me an energy return. So from Courmayeur, I hit I was just in a world, that wall that we hit. I was
Mhm.
just in that energy depleted world of just like, I've got no energy. Every time I tried to push, I would just be having to sit down. I got to our new vase at the foot of Grand Col Ferret with 2 minutes to spare on the checkpoint.
Ouch.
I couldn't sit down. I couldn't stop to eat. I had to continue to eat on the go. I started to feel really nauseous. And then
Mhm.
I had to climb the highest point of the course, which is Grand Col Ferret. And it just honestly, it was a battle that it's no fun. Any people listening will know if you're chasing cutoffs, it
No.
is so horrific. You get no time to sleep, to properly eat, to properly change your clothes, your socks. And I got to La Folie with 10 minutes until the cutoff
Right.
closed.
Mhm.
And then basically from La Folie to Champay-Lac, I kept going, but I just wasn't going quick enough. And I was timed out at 80
Right.
miles. At Champay-Lac, I was 25 minutes over the cutoff, and there was nothing. Anyone that knows that's been in that situation of like you're chasing cutoffs, you can see the time slipping away, but there is nothing that you can do to make yourself go faster. I had
Mhm.
nothing. I was digging as deep as I could, but I just did not have the energy. It wasn't my legs. It wasn't a niggle. It was
Mhm.
simply a cooling issue. And yeah, my race ended at
Yeah.
Champay-Lac.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that UTMB is always there, right? So you're going back.
Yeah, I'm
You
definitely
right?
gonna go back. I'm definitely going back. Whether it's this year or not, we will wait and see.
Okay.
But but I know tonight actually, and it
Is
will
it
be out
tonight
by the
already?
time
Okay.
it'll be out by the time, that this podcast comes out, but tonight is the premiere of the trailer of the film that has been done about my journey at
That's
UTMB.
right.
Yeah,
Oh, we
so,
will put the link in the comments
yeah, so
under the podcast so that we can watch it.
yeah,
So yeah, so that's another thing that you've done on
yeah,
top of everything
yeah,
else.
yeah,
That's fantastic. Really
thank
looking forward
you.
to
It
watching
was
that.
It's been quite emotional to see the footage,
Right.
because it's the footage of me out on the race,
Hmm.
and, as you said before, I don't like calling it "did not finish." I like to use the term "decided not to finish," but actually, I'm gonna be really real. The course, it humbled me. The course is a tricky course. The cutoffs, if you are mid to back of the pack, it's no fun chasing those cutoffs. But I know wholeheartedly what I need to work on the next time. And it is not the training I did, it
Yeah.
was the fueling and also going into these ultra marathons and very much organizing your life so that you are not as stressed out, as busy, so you can actually go in there properly rested. I wasn't properly rested going into it.
Right. Listen, I know that you're very busy and we are almost reaching our time. But I have a last question for you about your work as an activist around, not only around running, but especially around running. Obviously, representation is very important.
Yeah,
We need to see more women on the start
we
line. We
do.
need to see more women of color.
Yeah,
Uh, all the like communities that have been always excluded. We
yeah,
need to see more of them,
we
and
do.
representation is a very important right step
It is.
for that. My question is, since you started, obviously we're not going to talk about the Black trade runners. I know that you stepped down from your role, but you're still going to be active
Absolutely.
in the field. But since you've started, have you seen any changes, any improvement? Is there are there more people that represent like women of color or other minority, or you're not seeing much change? Or do you see like a facade, like a change from a facade? It's not a real change?
Yeah, I think that I have seen a change, and I've seen a
Hmm.
positive change, but that change has only come about because of people like myself and the communities like Black Trail Runners and other communities around the world at grassroots level that
Hmm.
are facilitating that change. So it's the work of volunteers, it's the work of women like yourself and me.
Hmm.
It's grassroots level work. Um, you have to remember Black Trail Runners was launched in 2020, which was in COVID times. It was the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement. It was during the murder of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. It was at a time when brands around the world, multi-billion pound brands, were saying, you know, we need to do better when it comes to representation. We need to put more resources into uplifting historically marginalized communities of women, people of ethnic diversity, less able-bodied runners, LGBTQIA+, etc. What we see now is the only changes that we see is because of the work of grassroots communities and activists such as myself. Brands have got a lot of work to do. A lot of the work they do is performative, if they do any at all anymore. What we're seeing is a real
Mm.
regression in the sense of I'll look on social media and I'll see athlete teams that have no people of color at all. I'll see
Yeah.
no older women. I will see no LGBTQIA plus. I will see no less so. Brands have become lazy, and I think it's due to the geopolitical climate we're in, the likes of Donald Trump, the rise of
Yeah.
the far right, ED&I
Mhm.
policies being scrapped. So where it's probably, if I'm going to be really honest with you, with what's happening geopolitically, it's probably worse than it's ever been because
Yeah.
organizations like mine, like Black Trail Runners, people like me are being once again systemically ignored
Yeah.
and not given opportunities and not given budget to continue to do the great work that we do. So yes, I see change, but I see change that's being made at grassroots level, that because there aren't people like me in those senior decision making positions within multi-billion pound brands, because to be honest with you, they're worried about having people like me there, that the change
Mhm.
is happening at the systemic level that we need to see it happening. So we continue to fight. I continue to use my platform and communities to continue to do the work they do, because we do see those numbers shifting, but they could shift even quicker if brands that have the resources actually put those resources to good use.
Well, let's call them out, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they need to do better. They need to do more. And we're here for you. You know, if
We're here.
we will, yeah, we will call them out. And I think the situation right now, it's kind of I feel sometimes that we are actually like taking step back,
Yes,
right?
we are. We are.
Instead of moving forward, we're moving backwards, and it's very worrying that you know, all this change that has happened is not going to go anywhere
And
because
that's
of
the
that.
thing.
So,
And, you
yeah,
know, and the thing I will say is that, you know, together, and I will say this to anyone listening, together we are stronger. Together, it doesn't matter how you use your voice or your body, whether it's even to support or give me a follow or share this podcast episode with someone you think needs to hear it. Small steps
right.
can lead to big change. We have the power as individuals to change the systems that are in place. We have to believe in ourselves. And that's why I'm here today. I took a bet on myself, and together we can facilitate that change. Where we see the change not happening is that we believe that you have to be Donald Trump-esque or you have to be president of this country to do it. They are only in power because they have been able to manipulate the masses to their way of thinking. So let's push against that and believe in the
Yeah,
collective power that we have.
absolutely. Absolutely. Sabrina, thank you so much for all you've said. And that's one of the reasons why I invited you to the podcast, because I think this conversation is very important and it needs to be more, it needs to be broader. It doesn't need to be just, certain sectors. It's and in certain countries, even in Italy, we have a very difficult situation right now. Like in the UK, it's kind of it's you know
Yeah.
broader than we probably know or imagine. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show, but also because, as I said, you're so inspiring, and I think you are like really somebody to look up to. And I invite everybody to read both books that Sabrina has written so far, and hopefully we will be able to translate them in Italian so that we don't have to go and buy them like and read them in English. So let's also campaign for that. I
Yes.
think that's something to campaign for. I, as I said, I really thank you for being our first non-Italian guest. Uh, and as Sabrina said, subscribe to our channel, go to Sabrina's. I'm going to put her contact in the comment
Thank
section
you.
so you can go and follow her. She has a website, she has a lot of things going on. So I'm going to put everything in the comment, but also subscribe to this channel and share this podcast and also the video, because this will be also on YouTube. So thank you so much, and hopefully I'll see you in person at some point in
I would
England.
love
Who you
that.
never know.
You never know.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for having me on.
Thank you, Sabrina.